Hello everyone. Today I wanted to do a video about freedom of speech. The reason why I'm doing this is because most of the physics videos that I put out aren't really, I'd say, friendly towards a general audience. Also, I am starting to reach the limit of what I can say or do without becoming more and more speculative, which I assume is going to be ignored more and more by people who are interested in hard proof. So I'm going to focus on things that are a bit more tangible and a bit more topical, or at least in this video I'm going to do that. So the reason why I want to talk about freedom of speech is that I've been triggered, which is relevant because I was triggered by a video that was made by a cosmic skeptic who is known as Alex as well. His given birth name Alex, aka Cosmic Skeptic, talking to a guy called Konstantin Kisin, who is one of the co-hosts and co-creators of the podcast Trigonometry, which is why it's relevant that I was triggered, because I suppose that was part of the deal. That was what he wanted to do. He wanted to trigger me. I watched part of their conversation because I was watching it while I was falling asleep. So it's not that I wasn't interested. It's that I was falling asleep, not because of the topic, not because of what they were saying, although it was a little bit because I'd heard all their arguments. Like I've thought about these arguments myself, and there was nothing that surprised me specifically in what they were saying. I'll link the video, by the way, in my description. So the way that Konstantin sees the topic is as a pragmatic way, as far as I can tell. We've noticed societies that prohibit speech are worse societies at providing the opportunity to fulfill individual needs and to fulfill yourself. By this measure, having a restriction on speech is a bad thing, and we should not do that, and so we should allow speech. And Cosmic Skeptic, aka Alex, Aka Alex, was trying to push him to try to define freedom a bit more. I won't lie, I was much more in line with what Alex was saying, because Alex was trying to get Konstantin to appreciate the complexity of the matter, which is something that I don't think a lot of free speech proponents tend to do. They try to just go, well, it's very simple, allow freedom of speech. Speech is not like physical action, and Bob's your uncle. Whenever I hear something like that, I shake my head and I mutter to myself, and I'm like, I understand you have a pragmatic point of view, but it's also ridiculous to expect such a simple point of view to be convincing to anyone but people who are already in the midst of an extreme situation of censorship, like a large political case involving a known political figure, and it's trying to be used as an example of what you shouldn't do. For instance, maybe Jordan Peterson they're trying to take away his license and things like that. This is not something that happens commonly to everyday folk. This is something that happens as a political statement. And so as much as we want it to be the norm, the mainstream, so that we can justify our simple view of what freedom of speech should be, it is not. It's just not that. That's never been my everyday experience. My everyday experience is that the movement that has occurred for the past 20 years or so to try to prohibit certain types of speech labeled hate speech comes from a good place. It comes from a place of, I want you to take my perspective into account, and as long as, personally, this is what I felt, as long as I display some level of empathy to the person that I'm speaking to, usually they're okay with me either making a mistake. For instance, like I know a few trans people, randomly, like met them in regular places, and if I were to accidentally say he or she instead of the other one, and then I switch and I realize, wait, they're identifying as this, and I switch, they don't care. They find that endearing. There's not a problem. The problem comes when you have a simple view of the world, in my opinion, and you're trying to simplify life too much by using extreme examples of any type of movement that has discarded nuance. And so, in a way, we do need people like Konstantin to be the non-nuanced, complete opposite of the non-nuanced. We need to stop all kinds of hate speech, but it is absolutely not the essence of the debate on what is considered free speech. And so that's why I wanted to jump in here today, kind of like Alex was doing, to talk about what freedom is, because I think it's not just about freedom of speech. It's about freedom in general. And this is a subject that people, I think, individually need to start thinking about. And I'm not comfortable staying silent anymore about the things that I think. So I'd like to talk about freedom. Let's just start off from the very beginning. From a physical perspective. So if you do believe in physics somewhat, and you do believe in science, you could believe in a God, and you could have religious perspective, but if you believe at all that the physical has power in any way over you, and that the physical is necessary to build a world, then what we can tell is that there is no freedom. First of all, there is no such thing as freedom. The physical perspective that lives in science is that we live in a determined world. Now, barring quantum mechanics that might indicate that the world is fundamentally, which I don't like the word fundamental, I don't like the concept of fundamental. If you want to think about that concept on your own, you can. Feel free to figure out, in my opinion, you will eventually, that there's no such thing. You can't have anything fundamental. It means nothing. As far as we can tell, on the macroscopic scale, barring the microscopic quantum scale, you're made from the microscopic world, but you are a macroscopic effect. And so you should obey these deterministic laws. And so there is no such thing as freedom in the first place. So this is just the general framework for understanding what freedom of speech means. If you are free to do something, then you are taking freedom from someone else. So if you are free to speak, then other people aren't free to not hear you. That's the most basic assumption from this debate, and I think it needs to be said. If you are free, you are taking freedom from someone else. So if you reduce your freedom, you are allowing more freedom for others. And so the question is, how much do you care about others? And how much do you care about yourself? Answer that question and you'll understand a bit more, in my opinion, about how you can limit yourself and how you can limit your own speech in order to help others. Or how you can speak up to stop others from speaking so much as well. It's relative. So in that video, Konstantin is trying to differentiate. I want us to become a bit more specific now, to justify how speech is somehow untouchable, I suppose, or relatively untouchable. That it is not like a physical action, and he uses the specific example of a brick. He says, if I hit your head with a brick, there's not much you can do about it. You're going to feel the effects of the brick. But if I speak a word that you don't like, you can do something about it psychologically. And if you remember what I just said about freedom and living in a determined world, that is absolutely incorrect. That is a physical fallacy, what you just said. You have to feel what you feel. So if you are badly armed at that very moment to deal with that very word and that very specific situation, you will feel the brunt of those words, and you will not be able to defend yourself. It's exactly the same example than the brick. It's just that the brick is more universally going to shatter your face, because the brick is a more, let's say it's a more stable, more general effect than a specific word in a specific situation. The only difference between the brick and the word is that the word could or could not be in that situation offending or hurtful. And so it removes the idea of, well, it's up to you to defend yourself. No, it's a situation, and it's about a compatibility. Are you paired up with a person with whom you are talking that is at that very moment ready to be able to receive the information you are giving in the way that you are expressing it, and will be able to answer without being offended, and therefore move a debate forward instead of caving, I suppose, to something that you said, or vice versa, that you would cave to something that they said. There's a reason why we have emotions. This is not new, that words can hurt, right? I mean, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will hurt. Like this expression has existed for quite a while. It should not come to a surprise to free speech. Can you say the word proponent? I don't know, proponents, defendants. The people who defend free speech should not come as a surprise that words do hurt. And so, to me, the people who are most likely to defend free speech are people who are not as liable of being offended, and probably people who are therefore less sensitive. I suppose that's a hypothesis. I'm unsure how true that is. I definitely know that I personally am very sensitive, and that I know, for instance, that Jordan Peterson seems to be a very sensitive person, and so we can rise above our sensitivities and defend ourselves better in future. So I don't think that's quite the answer, but it's something to be taken into consideration, that some people might just be more sensitive and some people might be less sensitive. And just as much as a man in general is stronger than a woman and can take a brick more easily to the face than a woman in general, and that a woman in general might be more prone to being hurt by a brick to the face, even though in general there probably might not be that much of a difference. People do need to take into account, I think, a difference in sensitivity between people as something that you are born with, as much as it is something that you can work on. And this is why the debate becomes more complex, and why seeing things in such a simple way as I just look at societies and they do a certain thing and it doesn't seem to work, and so we must go the complete polar opposite way. No, that's why we have philosophy, because we can tell, okay, path A is not good, so we should take path B, but how much of path B should we take? And that's where the philosophy comes in, and that's why Cosmic Skeptic was trying to push, I think, on what counts as freedom of speech, because there is no such thing as freedom. All speech is an action, and it is just a much subtler action and much more unique action, defined by the context. And the context is the other person's language skills and the other person's understanding of certain words. For instance, if you go, I'm just going to give a small example. In Australia, people would use the word cunt rather liberally. And in America, that word is extremely rude. And so you don't say that in America, but you could say it really easily in Australia. But I hear that if you call someone a dog in Australia, that's really bad. But if you called someone a dog in America, that would mean something else entirely. So words have different meanings for different situations. And so that's the true complexity of the situation, is that there is no easy answer. The refusal of one side and the other side to understand the nuance is, in my opinion, the issue when it comes to any debate, and including this one. If you don't want to understand the other person's perspective, you won't understand the whole picture, because we are all made of each other. Other people's perspectives are what make you. Right now, I'm convincing you of something or not, but I'm acting on you by speaking. And I'm triggered by Constantine and Alex's debate. So we all live in this framework where we have to tend towards the most coexistence. Realizing this is the answer to the debate on free speech. There is no such thing as freedom, and so what we have, we must learn to bestow on other people, gift them with. So if you have understanding, give understanding. If you have knowledge, give knowledge. And if the other person doesn't want your knowledge, that's their choice. And they should try to, as much as I don't believe in pure freedom, I do believe that we are pivots within this reality, and we feel free. As much as we aren't really free, because we feel free, we must respect everybody's freedom to do what they want. So the two sides are both right. We must both try to not hurt each other and try to be careful. And we must all try to allow other people to be who they want to be and choose how they want to be as much as possible. And figuring out the limits of what is possible as much as possible is the entire reason why we keep on talking about these things. There is no one solution. There is no one solution in a complex geometry. My name is Kieran LeCam. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Damn!